Some stories are too twisted to believe, too painful to forget. A mother is meant to nurture, to protect, to love, but what happens when that instinct is corrupted? When the one who gave you life decides she has the right to take it away? In the quiet hours of the night, behind the walls of a dimly lit apartment in Greenville, Jersey City, a horror unfolded that no one saw coming. A pregnant teenager, full of dreams, full of life, met an end so brutal, so merciless, that it left many in disbelief. She didn't die instantly. No, fate was crueler than that. She fought, her body battered, her spirit clinging to hope. But in the end, hope was not enough. This is the story of Jania Brooks, a 16-year-old girl who had her whole life ahead of her, until her mother's hand, the very hands that should have cradled her in love, became the hands that ended her life. An argument that started over something that should never have led to violence. Words were exchanged, anger flared, and suddenly, Jania found herself cornered in the small living room of their apartment. Jania was weak that night, she was helpless, she tried running away, her hands trembling as she tried to reason, to plead. But the woman who brought her into this world had already made up her mind. This is a story that will leave many speechless. A story that will make people question everything they thought they knew about a mother's love. How could a woman carry a child for 9 months, raise her for 16 years, and then turn around and take her life? How could she show no empathy, not just for her own daughter, but for the innocent life growing inside her? People say a mother's love is the purest kind of love. But after hearing this story, many will be left asking, was she even a mother at all? This wasn't just another tragedy. It was an act so brutal, so mindless, so cruel that an entire neighborhood cried out for justice. And justice came. It was a neighbor, a woman named Evelyn Carter, who first called the police that night. She had lived in the building for over 20 years, working at the local clinic and helping families in need. She knew Jania well, had seen her grow from a bubbly little girl into a bright young woman with dreams of becoming a lawyer. She had seen her excitement when she found out she was expecting, had even promised to help her through the pregnancy. But that night, Evelyn heard the screams. She heard the crashes, the breaking glass, the muffled cries. And then, silence. That silence was what made her pick up the phone. When the police arrived, they found Monica Brooks, Jania's 36-year-old mother, sitting on the couch, her hands still stained with blood. The apartment was in disarray, furniture overturned, blood splattered on the wall, and Jania lying on the floor, barely alive. Monica tried to play the victim. She attacked me first, she claimed. It was self-defense. But there was one person who wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this. Her own son. Daniel Brooks, Jania's 13-year-old brother, had seen everything. He had watched in horror as his mother lost control, as she slammed his sister into the wall over and over, as she grabbed that bottle and drove it into her chest. He had screamed, begged, tried to stop her, but he was just a kid. And now, he was the only one who could tell the truth. Standing in that police station, tears streaming down his face, Daniel made the confession that would shake the entire community. She killed Jania because she refused to dance in her OnlyFans video. It was that simple. Jania had refused to humiliate herself online for her mother's profit. She had refused to degrade herself, refused to be used. And for that, she paid with her life. The neighborhood erupted in outrage. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. This wasn't just abuse, this was a betrayal of the worst kind. A mother choosing money over her own daughter. By the time Jania died 3 days later in the hospital, Monica's fate was already sealed. The moment the young girl's heart stopped beating, the police officially upgraded the charges. Murder. No one wept for Monica. No one defended her. The only tears that were shed were for Jania. And for the unborn child who never even had a chance to take their first breath. And for Daniel, who had not just lost his mother and sister, but his entire family. All because of a mother who was never worthy of the title. But long before that night of horror, before the blood was spilled and the violence began, there was a mother and a daughter. A family. Jania was born when Monica was just 19 years old. Her father, Augustine Carter, had been a janitor at the building where Monica worked as an intern journalist. Their relationship was short, a few months of passion, of whispered promises and reckless decisions. But it was enough to create a bond between them that could never be broken. The bond of a child. Jania wasn't planned. Neither Monica nor Augustine was ready for a baby. They were young, broke, and completely unprepared. But Monica insisted on keeping the child. For a little while, Augustine pretended he would be present. He wanted to be a father. He showed up, brought diapers, held Jania in his arms with shaky hands, trying to believe he could do it. But reality was cruel. By the time Jania was 4, Augustine was gone. He left for Seattle and never came back. For a while, child support checks came in. Then they stopped. Monica was alone. Raising a child as a single mother wasn't easy. She did the best she could, or at least, that's what she told herself. But the neighbors saw things differently. The arguments. The yelling. The way Monica's voice would rise through the thin apartment walls. The bruises. Jania never talked about them. But sometimes, when she played outside with her friends, her sleeves would roll up just enough to reveal dark marks on her arms. Sometimes, she came to school with a swollen lip. A cut on her cheek. When asked, she just smiled and shook her head. She gets mad sometimes, she would say. It's nothing. Nothing. But Jania's best friend reported to her parents and this called for legal attention. Monica was threatened with losing her kids. They would offer them up to the foster system. So she changed. Or at least she pretended to. When Jania was 10, Monica went to therapy. For 3 years, things got better. Then, just as suddenly, they got worse. The screaming started again. The bruises reappeared. The cycle of abuse resumed. And it wasn't just Jania who had to face this toxic life, she had a brother too. Monica had gotten pregnant again when Jania was 3 years old. This time, there was no father in the picture from the start. She had reportedly met a man in a club. A stranger. His name was never mentioned again. But again, the baby stayed. Daniel Brooks was born, and from the moment he could walk, Jania became his second mother. She was only 3 years older than him, but she took care of him like a mother would. She made his meals. Helped him get ready for school. Cleaned up the apartment before their mother got home. She never complained. Never asked for a childhood of her own. But Monica was never satisfied. At 31, Monica got married. Phillips Owen was a quiet man, hardworking, responsible. He loved Monica, loved the kids, and for a while, life seemed stable. But it didn't last. After 5 years of marriage, Monica filed for divorce. People thought it was another failed relationship. Another heartbreak. But the truth? Phillips didn't approve of Monica's growing internet career. Monica had started an OnlyFans page. At first, it was just for extra money. A few videos. A few photos. But then, the followers started pouring in. She was good at what she did. A natural performer. An exotic and sensual dancer. And when the money started rolling in, she was hooked. She loved the fame. She loved the attention. And she refused to give it up. Phillips begged her to stop. Pleaded with her to focus on the kids. But she was an adult. She had a choice to make. And she chose the money. By the time Jania was 15, Monica was a rising star in the world of exotic dancing. She spent more time online than with her children. She settled her bills with ease and things began to get into place. But Monica wasn't the only one whose life was about to change. Jania was carrying a secret, a tiny life growing inside her, hidden beneath loose-fitting clothes and morning sickness. She was 4 months pregnant, a fact she had only shared with 2 people, her boyfriend and her mother. She and her boyfriend were young, but their love was real. He adored her, cherished her, and promised to stand by her no matter what. When Jania first saw the 2 pink lines on the test, she had been terrified, but he held her hand and told her they would figure it out together. She didn't want to be expelled from school, so she kept her pregnancy a secret. She continued her daily routine as if nothing had changed, but deep inside, she knew she was going to be a mother. And despite her fears, she was excited. When she finally told Monica, her mother's reaction was accommodating. At first, there was disappointment like every parent would feel. Eventually, she opened up and accepted her daughter. And when Jania insisted that she wanted to keep the baby, Monica had no choice but to agree. It should have been the beginning of a new chapter for Jania. Instead, it became the end. Monica Brooks was no longer just a mother, she was an internet star, addicted to the attention and the money that poured in from her OnlyFans page. Every night, she locked herself in her bedroom, turning it into a private stage where she moved sensually for an audience that worshipped her. The cheers, the compliments, the growing bank account, it all consumed her. Jania knew what her mother did for a living. It wasn't her business, and as long as Monica kept food on the table, she didn't ask questions. But things changed when Monica started bringing her in. At first, it was a harmless request for her to hold the ring light. Then she started asking Jania to watch her performances, offering critiques, nodding in approval. But that wasn't enough. Soon, Monica wanted more. Just try this move, she urged one night, demonstrating a slow, fluid motion. It's nothing serious. Jania hesitated, but she trusted her mother. She followed along, mimicking the steps, unaware that this was only the beginning. And then Monica started pushing Jania to join her. Just be in the background of my video. Just do a little dance, nothing crazy. Jania refused. Then the pressure grew. People will love you. You could be famous. Jania refused again. Then the threats came. You live in my house. You owe me. But still, Jania stood her ground. And when Jania wasn't swayed by her pleas and enticing offers, Monica snapped. Daniel Brooks had seen it before. The fights, the yelling, the tension that built every time Jania refused to do what their mother wanted. Monica had been pushing her for months, insisting that she had to be part of the OnlyFans videos. Jania, however, stood her ground. I don't want to be part of that life, she had told her mother over and over again. But Monica wouldn't take no for an answer. The arguments became routine, some nights, they shouted until their voices were hoarse. Other times, Jania would storm out and call her boyfriend, begging him to come pick her up. But June 11, 2024, was different. That night, there was no escape and the argument turned into a nightmare. At 11:40 p.m., Monica Brooks was in her element. The ring light was in place, the music pulsed, and her OnlyFans live stream was already filling with eager viewers. She moved fluidly, seductively, the followers encouraging her with praise and gifts. But tonight was supposed to be different, tonight, Jania was supposed to join her. Jania had agreed earlier, hesitant but unwilling to argue. But as the moment approached, she grew cold. Jania insisted she couldn't do it. She said she was feeling nauseous and she had to lay down. But Monica wasn't having it. She became violent and slapped her. Jania had endured her mother's temper before, but something inside her snapped. She wrenched herself free, shoving Monica back that night. And in that moment, the monster sprang forth. In one swift movement, she grabbed Jania and slammed her against the wall. Once. Twice. 3 times. The impact was so hard that a crack split through the drywall. Jania crumpled to the floor, dazed and gasping for air. The sound of her skull cracking echoed in the room. Blood trickled from her forehead, painting a crimson streak down her face, but she was still alive. Still conscious. Still begging. But this wasn't all it took to kill Jania. Monica wasn't finished. She stormed into the living room, snatched a bottle of wine from the shelf, and in a blind rage, smashed it over Jania's head. Glass shattered, blood dripped. Jania's eyes widened in terror. She tried to run, but pain slowed her down. She begged. But Monica was overcome with rage, she lunged forward and plunged the jagged remains of the glass deep into her chest. Jania screamed. Daniel screamed. And Monica? Monica just stood there, breathing heavily, watching the life drain from her daughter's eyes. Evelyn Carter, their elderly neighbor, had heard everything. She had known Monica for years. But that night, she didn't hesitate. She called the police. When they arrived, Monica tried to lie. It was self-defense, she said. But Daniel was brave. Terrified, broken, in tears but still, Daniel told the truth. She killed her because she wouldn't dance for her OnlyFans. That was the confession of the little boy. Jania was still fighting in the hospital, but Greenville, Jersey City was outraged. How could a mother do this? How could she fail her kids in so many ways? Jania Carter wasn't supposed to die like this. Jania wasn't just a girl walking through life. She was a fighter, a dreamer. At 16, she was already planning her future, a future that included college, a law degree, and a life better than the one she had known growing up. She had dreams of standing in a courtroom, fighting for justice, making a name for herself. She wanted to be more than statistics, more than just another girl from a struggling household. And she was going to do it. Even when she found out she was pregnant, she never let go of her dreams. She was scared, yes. She was young. But she wasn't ashamed. She saw her unborn child as a gift, not a mistake. She knew it would be hard, balancing school and pregnancy, but she had plans. She wanted to be the kind of mother she never had. Her teachers adored her. She was brilliant, outspoken, and determined. She participated in debates, stayed after school to help younger students, and made sure she never let her grades slip, even when life outside of school was unbearable. But all of that ended the night her mother decided she wasn't worthy of life. Jania didn't die on the floor of that apartment. She fought. When the paramedics arrived, she was barely clinging to life. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse weak. But she was alive. For 3 days, she lay in a hospital bed, machines keeping her alive, her body fighting against the odds. Doctors did everything they could. Surgery after surgery, transfusion after transfusion. But some wounds are too deep to heal. The internal bleeding was too severe. Her lungs, punctured by shards of glass, struggled to hold on. On the 3rd day, in the early hours of the morning, her lungs collapsed. Her heart stopped. And that was when the murder charges were pressed. Jania Brooks, daughter, student, mother-to-be, was gone. Her dreams, her future, her unborn child, all taken away in an act of violence so cruel, so senseless, that the world could barely comprehend it. And the worst part? The person who did it was the one person who was supposed to love her the most. How could a mother do this? How could she value money over her own child? The entire community asked. No one had an answer. But one thing was certain. Jania Brooks was gone. Phillips Owens had been silent for years after divorcing Monica, but after Jania's death, he could no longer hold back. He came forward, revealing what many had suspected but never dared to say out loud: Monica had always been abusive. He recounted the night she threatened to kill him if he did not agree to the divorce. She had accused him of wanting to take her children away, twisting his genuine concern into something unimaginable. But Phillips had only ever wanted to help. He had seen the bruises, the fear in Jania's eyes, the way Daniel flinched at his mother's voice. He knew Monica was unfit to raise them, but when she refused to change, he had no choice but to walk away. Monica might have been a troubled woman, a young mother whose life had spiraled out of control before she ever had a chance to make the right decisions. Maybe, in her own twisted way, she believed she was doing what was best for her children. But in reality, she was a mother who chose herself over her kids, again and again. It wasn't just the OnlyFans page. It wasn't just the way she forced Jania into something she clearly did not want. It was the years of neglect, the relentless need for control, the violent outbursts over missed curfews and small defiance. It was the failure of everyone around them to step in before it was too late. How had this gone unnoticed for so long? Why hadn't anyone saved Jania? Perhaps the love of a mother is overrated, because sometimes, the ones meant to protect us are the ones who destroy us.